Welcome to the Reichenbach Railway. This is an automated N-gauge layout in a space only 60 centimetres by 120 centimetres. It's notionally set in southern Germany in the mid-1950s, although purists will spot some inconsistencies. It mostly uses equipment from the German manufacturer Fleischmann. I started making it in 2001 during the long winter evenings in our weekend house in Dorset. We gave up the house in 2003, and so the layout went into store where it remained until 2018, when I had time and space to start working on it again. Surprisingly, with only a bit of tweaking and cleaning, it worked okay soon after I took it out of its box. First time it had seen daylight for 15 years. It was designed to be entertaining to watch, so you can have up to 3 trains running simultaneously, which is pretty good for such a compact layout. There are different levels and lots of tunnels and hidden sections, so it's fun for spectators to try and work out which train is going to appear where. Let's have a look at the layout. The small river is called the Reichenbach and uses real water which cascades down the waterfall. The Reichenbach Falls, a name which those of you who are Sherlock Holmes fans may recognise. There are 2 stations. The upper one, Oberreichenbach, consists of a passing bay and a couple of sidings. The ground falls away steeply the other side of the tracks, which gives a nice view out across the Bavarian hills, but means there's limited space for the station itself. It has a rather big and grandiose signal box for such a small station, but when it was being built, the railway district had an end-of-year underspend and wanted to use up the money to ensure the budget for the following year wasn't reduced, hence the oversized signal box. There is only one platform and the ticket office is by the side of the car park. A Setra bus is waiting outside the station to pick up passengers. The station has a large goods shed, outside which Fritz Poppenhoff, who runs a local delicatessen, is talking to the driver of the delivery van. Next to him is his dog. Fritz is a fan of Tintin stories, so he's called the dog Snowy. At the chapel on the hill, Max Dieterhoff and Elisa Meinertzhagen are getting married. The woman in the flowery dress is the one Max jilted in order to marry Elise. She's called Greta Schwarz, and she will later try, unsuccessfully, to trip Elise as she makes her way down the steps to the waiting wedding cars. Her small-mindedness is one of the reasons Max decided not to marry her. The lower station, Unterreichenbach, also has a passing bay and a single siding which disappears behind the hill to the goods shed by the mill. The station master, Herr Friedrich Gross, here in the centre of the picture, is affectionately known by his 7 children and many of the passengers as the Fat Controller. Much of his work consists of apologising to people who are nearly killed or maimed at the lethal road crossing at the end of the station. They really should do something about that. The woman on the platform with the dog is Berta Brossmann. She has a PhD in nuclear physics and has won several prizes for her outstanding contributions to string theory, which only 7 other people in the entire world understand. She likes down-to-earth men with lots of muscles and is trying to get one of the steam locomotive drivers to marry her. She believes that having a friendly dog will make her seem less daunting, but unfortunately the dog is finding it very difficult to build a meaningful relationship with her. The central section is where a lot of the railway lines crisscross. The trestle bridge is made out of long matchsticks used for lighting barbecues. If you look carefully, you can see Mr. Muller, the man who owns the watermill, taking a rest on a bench in his vegetable garden. With trains clattering past every few minutes, it can't be very relaxing, but he says he likes watching them and the smoke helps his cabbages and broccolis to grow and gives them a nice smoky flavour. Although his wife thinks the smoky flavour is because he smokes 60 cigarettes a day and then pees on the vegetables to fertilise them. Okay, enough of this complicated sociology of Reichenbach. Let's have a look at the construction of the layout. First of all, the schematic diagram. Here it is. This is a sketch I did in 2001 when I was doing the initial planning. It's really quite simple, a single track circuit with 3 passing places and a few additional sidings which aren't shown on this diagram. It looks much more complicated because the track is folded over itself several times. So the second diagram shows you the actual layout of the tracks and how they twist and twirl around. It was interesting trying to work out the convolutions and gradients. The system as you see it now is set up so that 2 trains run clockwise and another 2 run anti-clockwise. So there are 4 trains altogether, which makes for a good amount of activity on such a small layout. The 3 sections are different lengths, which introduces some variation into the schedule as trains have to wait for each other. You can run the system with fewer trains or send them all in the same direction, but it's less interesting if you do. This centre section of the layout just lifts out, so if we take it out carefully, and we can have a look under the bonnet and see how some of the mechanics work. The base of the layout is a framework of 20 cm squares made out of light but strong stripwood. The track base is attached to that and adjusted to whatever height it needs to be. You can see the layers of circling track that take the trains up and down to the different levels. In the middle of the lift-out section is the automation system. This is based on 3 relays which switch the 3 sections from clockwise to anti-clockwise power sources and also control the main points. There are also 6 section switches, 3 clockwise and 3 anti-clockwise, which switch the power to the various passing places to get the trains underway through diodes to make sure only electricity of the correct polarity goes to the appropriate section. Feedback to the switching system on which train is where is provided by reed switches around the layout, which are activated by tiny magnets on the trains themselves. You can also see some of the plumbing here. I started with 1 water reservoir, but because of the restricted space it didn't contain enough water, so I added the bigger one you can see here with the blue lid on it, and there's a 3rd one hidden behind the scenery at the other end of the layout to smooth the flow of water down the waterfall. There are 2 miniature pumps of the type used in small aquariums, and I adapted a variable voltage power supply to control the speed of the flow. If it's too fast, it will flood Mr. Muller's vegetable garden and orchard. There are a couple of simple thermal delays built into the stations to slow down the passenger trains. I experimented with devices to make all the trains decelerate and accelerate smoothly as they stop and start in the stations, but adjusting everything was so complicated and finicky I eventually gave up, but it can be done. The automation now works well, but it needed quite a bit of fine-tuning initially. I wouldn't use this kind of equipment again if I was starting to build such a layout now, but back in 2001 computer control of model railways was in its infancy, and of course there's no computer hardware or software involved, so one consequence is that this layout is future-proofed. Unless something breaks, it should still run effectively 100 years from now. So that's it. I think this layout has pretty much reached the limit of what can be achieved in the space available using such old-fashioned technology, so I'm not planning to invest any more time and effort in enhancements or changes. Just switch the whole thing on from time to time and enjoy watching everything happen. I have plans to build another larger N-gauge layout using digital technology and computer control. I might have the first phase of that up and running by the end of 2020, and if so, I'll post a report on how I've been getting on. Meanwhile, thank you for watching, and I hope you found the tour interesting.